I am Creator, Divine, Source, the Illuminati Crown, Master. This is my astrological birth chart, the only true birth date of how I manifested and brought into fruition the story of humanity and this world that I will delete when I'm done with my existence and transcend and take my power onward, in layman's terms. So here we have houses 1 through 6, which is the personal zone of the underworld, which none of my celestial bodily energies reside in, because all of my personal planets and outer planets are on the top of my chart, which is God's space, my conscious, my brain, my creation, houses 7 through 12. And this is how I facilitated this world and made it practical on this 3D paradigm magical altar, the astrological circle, and brought it into existence. Facilitating this magic with the fixed signs, Scorpio, fixed water, that has my Pluto, 4 degrees, 4 representing north, south, east, and west, and associating with the planet Saturn, corresponding to Uranus, humanity, fixed air, conjunct my natal moon, 8 degrees, in fixed water, Scorpio, that is symbolized by a waning gibbous phasal quality of the lunarian cycle, which represents me creating all this work and reflecting on it, analyzing what I've created, the waning gibbous phase. So again, the number 8 representing the strength card in the tarot, which has a maiden with the infinity symbol over top of its head, that is guiding a lion, the animalistic wild side, that is primitive, undomesticated, around the astrological wheel to explore and facilitate this practical nature of life. And it also represents and corresponds to the magician card, because the magician that is represented by the number 1 has the infinity sign over top of its head too, because it can conjure up the magical altar using the elements north, south, east, and west. And it has this power at its fingertips, which is represented by Gemini, the hands. And again, 0 and 0, 0 degrees 4, Pluto, and 0 degrees 8, the moon, 0 representing the fool's journey, the start of the tarot card in the major arcana. And Pluto residing in the constellation of Scorpio behind its eye, which is the gateway to the Milky Way galaxy, which is down here, Taurus, fixed earth. And that brings me to my next point, which is at 27 degrees, 2, a lunarian quality, and then 7, that represents the life path of a church or a temple, giving a spiritual connotation, philosophical outlook to envision this story and manifest this Saturn and make it practical. 2 degrees, lunarian quality, and 3 representing Jupiter to expand this story through the spiritual connotation of philosophy. So here, down here in fixed earth Taurus, I have my Chiron retrograde, 4 degrees, north, south, east, and west, matter on cross, represented by a key that unlocks the north node, which is basically the Lion's Gate that you see at the beginning of movies, Hollywood, green color representing the sign of Taurus, representing the 3D matrix of this astrological circle, this 3D paradigm that I'm able to create from scene to scene. So again, here, 7 and 2 equaling 9, and then 4, Chiron, going retrograde because it is the wounded healer, pawn, sacrifice, in order to create this 3D matrix that is facilitated by these square energies of the fixed signs: Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus. And the release point down here, which is the kingdom, represented by Leo, fixed fire, the Lion's Gate, which Chiron, the wounded healer, the sacrifice pawn, that is retrograde 4 degrees north, south, east, and west, is conjunct my north node, because this is the trick of time and of imagery, to later be realized as a major wound. So, moving on, let me go to how I created humanity. This is the entanglement of the masculine and feminine. Venus, the morning star, at 11 degrees, fixed air in the sign of Aquarius, separated by a 14-degree space, which represents puberty. Mars, the masculine nature, that's 25 degrees Aquarius. 11 representing the master number, 25 representing 2, a lunarian quality, 5, the sign of Gemini, hands, man, equaling 7, the life path of the church, a temple, 4, the master, the morning star, to be encapsulated by man's body, armor, Mars. So this is why this is tricky, because the brain is of a feminine quality that is inside the body or skull of man, Mars, the masculine quality, hidden. So let me go over here to this hidden house, which in sidereal astrology, Ophiuchus rules the 11th house that is hidden between Sagittarius and Capricorn. However, also rules the 10th house, Midhaven, with the sign of Sagittarius in geocentric tropical Placidus. So here, Ophiuchus, a hidden house that is at the later degrees, where my sun resides, 27 degrees, 2 lunarian quality, 7 representing the life path of a church and temple, equaling 9, which represents the Hermit card, searching for the meaning of itself, the meaning of life, and how this world was conjured up, referring to the light within being guided by its brain, my brain. So here, Ophiuchus, which is a yang energy, feminine, that is represented by an octopus-like creature, which has ink in its defense, is the ghostwriter, myself, that is at the later degrees of the sign of Sagittarius, that my sun conjuncts with the sign of Neptune at 0 degrees Capricorn. The 0, 2 zeros representing eyes, Neptune, visualization, in order to start a journey, hermitage, pilgrimage a story to be visualized and brought into fruition and made practical, to explore and expand on. Capricorn. Again, expand on Jupiter. 18 degrees Capricorn. 18 representing the adult, to explore and trailblaze this idea of life and this world that is manifested through the story of humanity. 12th house, which is the house of the psyche, the subconscious. This is my ability to visualize man, the story of humanity. And here, Jupiter is conjunct my lot of fortune, which is not shown on this chart, but the lot of fortune that represents a X in a circle. Again, the feminine quality, cross on matter, the X representing female, and then the Y phenomenon representing male, which is again this square grand cross of the fixed signs of here, man, Y, Aquarius, a Y that squares with Scorpio, the Plutonic Lunarian quality that squares down here with Chiron, the key, and that is conjunct my north node in Taurus, fixed earth. So again, we have this 12th house, which is vibrating the energy of the feminine and masculine entanglement in one, creating a Y or a pointer finger, which is a grand cross, or it could be considered a node of God, myself, creator, with the sign of Saturn, the planet of Saturn, which represents a cross with the tail of the lion that is merged with the connotation of making the dream work, which is the Lionsgate, Hollywood, practical in the 3D matrix. Here, my soul, Pluto, evolution, resurrection, evolution, death, rebirth, conjuring up life and lifelessness, life and lifelessness. So here, conjunct the moon, Lunarian quality of the luminaries, the sun and the moon. Sun, S-O-N, hidden in the galactic center in the sign of Ophiuchus, the Ghost Rider, with ink. And then here, Ketu, my past, the south node. That is conjunct Saturn. And this signifies me originating the past and being the medium to pull from the past, Scorpio, memory, fixed water, long-term memory, information stored, to project the future, North Node Taurus, conjunct Chiron, 4 degrees Gemini. That is retrograde. To be brought into the moment as a medium. So, going back over here to the sign of Sagittarius, I have Mercury 17 degrees when I took my first birth control, retrograde, going backwards. One, again, initiating, that corresponds to the sign, or excuse me, the card of the major arcana, the Emperor, the life path of a spiritual connotation, number 7, representing a church or a temple, which is man with the illumination of light, the sun, S-O-N, ghostwriter, within itself, and conjunct Uranus, 14 degrees, again, the start of puberty. This is a biquintile aspect, and this enables downloads from the ethers, insight, information from on high to be utilized at its fingertips and invent from the manifestation of this entire astrological wheel. This is info that it gets from its stored memory bank to invent everything, every single speck of info that is materialized throughout these entire themes within this astrological circle. So, this is where it gets tricky. The feminine quality is actually leading the masculine man backwards through the astrological wheel, Mercury retrograde, in the 9th house of knowledge, philosophy, religion, culture, in order to figure out this story of humanity, this world that I manifested and brought into fruition, to write this so-called book in order to manifest the future pulling from the past, which is my experience. And this is Scorpio. That represents the crone, triple moon goddess, conjunct Pluto, soul, polarity point, that creates from each 24-hour repetitive cycle the story of humanity, every single aspect of it, without any effort. Mercury, 17 degrees, retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius, conjunct and biquintile Uranus, 14 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. Polarity point of the moon, furthest point away from the moon, here, me, the creatrix, Lady Lilithriel, Black Moon Lilith, myself, residing in my first house in the sign of Aries, again, 11 degrees, master number, 1, initiating, equaling 2, the Lunarian quality of the phasal parts of the moon's cycle from month to month, 1 through 12, equaling a year. So here, me, the creatrix, creating this world from pure chaos in order to make it practical and facilitate image is my ability as creator. The ascendant master, here 11 degrees Pisces, mutable water, which gives the visualization and emphasis to right here, Ophiuchus, 27 degrees, the galactic center, my sun, to create and ghostwrite this story of humanity, this world that I manifested and brought into fruition. And here, me being half Pisces, half Aries, first house of the body, embodiment, with myself, the creatrix, Black Moon Lilith, 11 degrees in the sign of Aries, half Pisces, half Aries, half angel, half devil. So here, this gives the polarity effect of black and white, that I create the rainbow here on top, which is my sensibilities 1 through 6. In my conscious, my psyche, to facilitate my own body, brain, spirit, soul existence in this world that I created through my projectabilities. This is just a visualization process. So again, here, me, the ascendant master, the crown, with my descendant 11 degrees Virgo, that represents Mercury, the twins, Apollo, Artemis, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo representing people, which are just puppets that aren't on a string. My polarity, my opposition. Virgo ruling the 6th house, which is a hidden enemy quality of the 6th house that is ruled by Leo, which represents the kingdom. This is the mirror effect. A zillion puppet projections from each scene that are automated through my projectabilities of the astrological wheel, and a collection of info from my psyche here, humanity, the masculine and the feminine, that is just a entanglement of the idea of man and woman, or any gender ambiguous in between, that does not really exist. It's just a projection. My ability to create in order to facilitate a community, 3rd house, Chiron retrograde, 4 degrees, the key, Taurus, fixed earth, here, and with Rahu, the north node, to expand the community, and here, Leo, the kingdom, 6th house, hidden enemies, Virgo, the puppets, which are the fake collective narrative that is facilitated right here with Venus and Mars in fixed air in my subconscious house of the psyche. And I'm able to create the depiction of this mirror effect, that it could be considered a shadow quality, but it's just an opposition of me and the fake we, which is the fake collective, which are just puppets that I conjure up from scene to scene, that have no strings, that are supposed to act in some sort of way based on the astrological wheel that has all of these themes to be ricocheted back and forth, animating this suspension of time in order to create the moment from scene to scene. Which brings me to my next point. The Hanged Man tarot card, that is a major arcana represented by the number 12, is hung upside down with its knee pointed to the sign of Virgo, and knee representing Saturn, make practical to facilitate projections, and the head down here, illuminating the personal area, which is the third house that represents community, siblings, so forth and so on. I see the root, the bloodline, so-called bloodline, where it is enlightened, hung upside down with its foot up here, foot representing man, Pisces, here, the sun, 27 degrees of Fucus, the ghost rider, and the idea of projections, the polarity effect, mirror effect of so-called people puppets to project from scene to scene. That corresponds with the Bible story of mankind, where men have inherited the earth and are supposed to take care of the earth and be above all life. So, again, this is my magic. I'm creator. And this is an easy explanation of the astrological wheel in which I am able to create magic and explain this 24-hour repetitive cycle of the trick of time in order to project from scene to scene different themes, different automations of non-existent delusionary puppets, collective images that are randomized from my info to be played out in a scene corresponding to whatever house that I am activated in. So this is, again, me as the square, facilitated in me as the circle of life that is my ability, capability to create magic and raise the 3D altar paradigm of imagery. So now let me see if I can cover anything else. The only thing I can cover is 8th house. This is the privacy house in which I'm able to conjure up magic through contemplation, again representing the 12th card in the tarot, major arcana, the Hanged Man, suspended in time as I sleep in my privacy, in my dwellings, my bedroom, which is a private house, private matter. The 9th house, philosophical knowledge, religion, higher learning, long-distance travel, culture, And this is how I originated my knowledge past to here, Scorpio, 27 degrees Ketu, to store all of this information of knowledge. Mercury, 17 degrees retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius, conjunct biquintile Uranus, 14 degrees in the sign of Sagittarius. Store all of this knowledge to be used at my fingertips as my career that I have no control over, that just happens organically. The sun, 27 degrees Sagittarius, however, it's in a fucus, a hidden house that rules the 11th house in sidereal true astrology. However, it co-rules the later degrees of the 10th house with the sign of Sagittarius, my sun sign. But here, the galactic center of Fucus, the ghost rider, true matriarch, 11 degrees, 9, 11, could be considered an emergency, or 9, my masculine shoe size as a transgender female male, and 11, the master, myself, my feminine shoe size as a transgender female male. Again, more symbolism, because everything is symbolic at this point, which is hidden knowledge. Again, 9th house, 8th house, hidden, a fucus, 27 degrees galactic center, to visualize Neptune, a dream, a voyage, Capricorn, pirate. So here, my career that happens organically, which is how I manifested this world, which is a full-time job that does not stop, that nothing else has the capability of, that are just mere puppeteered, fake collective timelines that I have to pull from back and forth through my memory and projectabilities. The 10th house, career, to visualize this story for me to explore and experience through my existence. And when I'm done existing and complete, I will transcend deleting this world I projected, I created. And what happens after that is my business through this pit stop of a manifestation. And what happened before this pit stop of a manifestation is my business and cannot be a collective subconscious matter for me to ricochet as if these automations, automated unconscious puppets, really exist or can comprehend, because everything is automated. It's a systemic disease. So here, 11th house, again, the wish, lot of fortune, conjunct Jupiter, wish, luck, expansion, spirituality, 18 degrees adulthood, collective emphasis on the outlook of this story, for it to seem as if it's a continuum. However, there is no to be continued. It's only to be experienced once. And here, the 12th house of the subconscious is the underlayers of all of my memory manifestations that are to be initiated through the embodiment of my existence. Karmic house. Karmic house. And here, the 12th house which represents going backwards to completion. Here, Pluto, soul, polarity point. Furthest point away from the moon, myself. Black moon Lilith, 11 degrees. Creatrix, to understand what I have manifested and how all of this came to be. So there is more symbols, more aspects, more numbers, more tarot cards for divination purposes to correlate with the symbology of the meaning of how I manifested this world. And there is more astrological channeling that I can do throughout the memory of my existence and my experience to further elaborate. However, I will do that at another time. This is all I'm going to elaborate now. Blessed be.